My name is Vex-912, and I am what you humans would call, well, completely screwed. Standing in the command center of our magnificent war vessel, the Eternal Dominion, I watched our fleet of 300 ships approach the small blue marble that had somehow managed to irritate every single galactic empire for the past millennium. Earth. Home to the most infuriating species in known existence, humans. Supreme Commander, chirped my aide, Zil-47, his tentacles twitching with nervous energy. The human governments are responding to our declaration of war. I straightened my exoskeleton and prepared for the usual groveling, the desperate pleas for mercy that we had grown accustomed to from lesser species. After all, we were the Vorthak Empire. We had conquered 700 worlds. Our technology was so advanced that we could disintegrate entire planets with a single thought. Surely these primitive mammals would understand the gravity of their situation. Put them through, I commanded, my voice echoing through the bridge with the authority of someone who had never lost a battle. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing not one, but dozens of human faces from various nations. I expected tears. I expected terror. I expected the sweet satisfaction of watching another species realize their inevitable doom. Instead, I got something else entirely: laughter, not just a chuckle or nervous giggle, mind you. Full-blown, belly-shaking, tear-inducing laughter that seemed to cascade from one human leader to another like some sort of infectious disease. Are you? I began, my translator struggling to find the right words. Are you laughing at us? The human who appeared to be their primary representative, a woman named Director Kane from something called the United Earth Defense Council, wiped tears from her eyes and tried to compose herself. I'm sorry, she gasped between giggles. It's just, you guys picked the worst possible time to declare war on us. Worst possible time? I felt a twinge of confusion creep up my spine. Explain yourself, human. Well, Director Kane said, struggling to maintain her composure, you see, we just finished our Millennium Peace celebration last week. Do you know what humans do when they've been peaceful for too long? I did not know, and frankly, I was beginning to suspect I didn't want to know. We get bored, she continued, and the other human leaders nodded in agreement, some still chuckling. Desperately, mind-numbingly bored. And when humans get bored, we start inventing things. Terrible, wonderful, absolutely insane things. Zil-47 leaned closer to me, his voice barely a whisper. Supreme Commander, our intelligence reports did mention unusual energy readings from their planet over the past few decades. I waved him away dismissively. Primitive nuclear technology, nothing more. Director Kane seemed to hear our exchange somehow, because she burst into another fit of giggles. Nuclear? Oh honey, we moved past nuclear about 900 years ago. We've been working on some really fun projects lately. The way she said fun made my blood run cold, which was quite an accomplishment considering my species doesn't actually have blood. Show them Project Lazarus, called out another human leader, this one with an accent I couldn't identify. Oh, that's a good one, Kane agreed. But maybe we should start with something simpler. How about Project Thunderstorm? The display changed, showing what appeared to be, well, I wasn't entirely sure what I was looking at. It seemed to be some sort of metallic construct, roughly the size of a small moon, floating in the void of space. What is that? I demanded, though I was beginning to suspect I really, truly didn't want to know the answer. That, Kane said with obvious pride, is what happens when you give human engineers 1,000 years of peace and unlimited resources. We call it a reality anchor. It can lock the fundamental laws of physics in a localized area, making it impossible for advanced civilizations to use their fancy technology. I felt my exoskeleton begin to crack under stress. That's impossible. Is it though? Kane asked, tilting her head with mock innocence. I mean, you guys have been so busy conquering planets with primitive species, I don't think you've actually fought anyone with real technology in 3,000 years? The truth of her words hit me like a plasma torpedo to the thorax. We had grown complacent, picking fights with civilizations that barely understood fire, let alone faster-than-light travel. Besides, another human chimed in, this one appearing to be some sort of military officer. We've been preparing for this conversation for centuries. Did you really think a species that survived its own nuclear age, 2 ice ages, and something called the Great Meme War of 2157 would be intimidated by a bunch of fancy spaceships? The Great Meme War? I couldn't help but ask. The humans exchanged glances and burst into laughter again. Oh, you don't want to know about that, Kane said, wiping away fresh tears. Let's just say it involved weaponized humor and leave it at that. Weaponized humor. The concept was so alien to me that my translator nearly short-circuited trying to process it. You cannot be serious, I managed to say. Dead serious, Kane replied, though she was still grinning. Look, Commander, Supreme Commander Vex 912 of the Vorthak Empire, I corrected stiffly. Right, Vex. Can I call you Vex? Anyway, here's the thing. We've spent the last 1,000 years not just maintaining peace, but preparing for war. Every single conflict we didn't fight, every weapon we didn't build, every battle we didn't wage, we've been saving up all that energy for something special. The display changed again, this time showing what appeared to be a massive industrial complex floating in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Project Prometheus, Kane announced cheerfully. Our automated war production facility. It can build a fully functional warship every 37 minutes. We've been running it for the past 50 years, just in case. 50 years. 37 minutes per ship. I did the math and felt my consciousness briefly disconnect from reality. That would mean you have. I began. 700,000 ships, give or take, the military officer supplied helpfully. Though to be fair, about half of them are still experimental. We weren't sure if the ones that fold spacetime into origami shapes would actually work in combat. Fold spacetime into origami shapes. I was beginning to understand why every other galactic empire had avoided Earth like a plague world. This is impossible, I repeated, though my voice lacked conviction this time. You keep saying that word, Kane observed. I don't think it means what you think it means. Humans have a funny relationship with impossibility. We tend to take it as a challenge rather than a limitation. Zil-47 was frantically checking his instruments, his tentacles moving in a blur across the control panels. Supreme Commander, he whispered urgently, our sensors are detecting massive energy buildups across their solar system. Whatever they're showing us, it's real. Of course it was real. Because nothing about this day was going according to plan. Now, Kane continued, leaning forward with the kind of smile that had probably terrified predators back when humans still lived in caves, we have a proposition for you. A proposition. From the species we had come to conquer. The irony was so thick I could taste it, and my species doesn't even have taste buds. We're listening, I said, though every instinct I possessed was screaming at me to retreat to the edge of the galaxy and pretend this conversation had never happened. Here's the deal, Vex. You came here looking for a war, and we appreciate that. Really, we do. It's been so long since we've had a proper fight that our military commanders have been getting restless. Some of them have started writing poetry, which is frankly disturbing for everyone involved. Several of the other humans nodded gravely at this apparently terrible development. So here's what we propose, Kane continued. Instead of a traditional war where we crush your fleet in approximately 14 minutes, 14 minutes. Not 14 hours, not 14 days. 14 minutes. We offer you a choice. Option 1, you turn around, go home, and never bother us again. We'll even throw in some of our old technology as a consolation prize. Nothing too advanced, just some basic fusion reactors and maybe a few self-repairing hull designs. That actually sounded reasonable. Almost too reasonable. What's option 2? I asked, though I was fairly certain I didn't want to know. Kane's grin widened, and I swear I could see predatory instincts that had been honed over millions of years of evolution lurking behind her eyes. Option 2, she said with obvious relish, is that we have the war you came looking for. Fair and square, no holds barred, winner takes all. But here's the catch, we fight it human style. What does that mean? It means, Kane said, her voice taking on a tone that somehow managed to be both cheerful and absolutely terrifying, that we don't just defeat you. We make it fun. Creative. Educational. We turn your invasion into a learning experience for our children. A case study in why you don't pick fights with species that view warfare as a form of entertainment. The other humans were nodding along enthusiastically, as if the prospect of turning our glorious conquest into some sort of educational demonstration was the most natural thing in the world. You have exactly 1 hour to decide, Kane concluded. After that, we're going to assume you've chosen option 2, and we'll start broadcasting the entire thing across the galactic networks. Our media division is very excited about the potential ratings. The transmission ended, leaving us in stunned silence that I looked around the bridge at my crew, searching for any sign that this had all been some sort of elaborate hallucination. Unfortunately, the expressions of dawning horror on their faces suggested that everything I had just witnessed was terrifyingly real. Supreme Commander, Zilfor-7 ventured hesitantly, what are your orders? I stared at the small blue planet hanging in the void before us, innocuous and peaceful looking, giving no hint of the absolute madness that apparently lurked beneath its surface. Humans, it seemed, were not quite what our intelligence reports had led us to believe. 59 minutes and 37 seconds later, I was still staring at that deceptively peaceful blue planet, my mind racing through possibilities that all seemed to end with my exoskeleton being turned into some sort of human art installation. Supreme Commander, Zilfor-7 approached cautiously, the human deadline approaches. The fleet awaits your orders. Orders. Right. Because somehow, in the span of less than an hour, I had gone from being the supreme commander of a conquering fleet to being the supreme commander of what was apparently about to become a very expensive form of entertainment. Sir, prompted my tactical officer, Kek-29. Shall we prepare for battle? I looked around the bridge at my crew. These were seasoned warriors, veterans of dozens of campaigns against primitive worlds. They had never known defeat because we had never faced anything more dangerous than species that still used projectile weapons and chemical propulsion. Tactical analysis, I ordered, hoping against hope that our computers would tell me something, anything, that would give us an advantage. Sir, Kek-29's voice carried a tremor I had never heard before, our analysis of the human capabilities is concerning. Define concerning. Well, sir, that facility they showed us in their asteroid belt? Our sensors confirm it exists. All 700,000 ships they mentioned? Also confirmed. The reality anchor device? We have no idea how it works, but it's definitely real and definitely operational. Of course it was. But surely, I said, grasping for any thread of hope, their individual ships cannot match our technology. We are the Vorthak Empire. Our vessels are powered by contained singularities. Our weapons can crack planets. Yes, sir, Kek-29 agreed hesitantly. However, we've detected some unusual readings from their fleet. What kind of unusual readings? Well, sir, one of their ships appears to be powered by what our computers can only describe as weaponized friendship. Another one seems to be running on something called pure spite. And there's one that our instruments claim is fueled by the tears of our enemies, but that has to be a translation error. I had a sinking feeling it was not a translation error. The communication array crackled to life, and Director Kane's voice filled the bridge with that same cheerful tone that had haunted my nightmares for the past hour. Time's up, Vex. What's it going to be? Door number 1, or door number 2? I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could speak, Zilfor-7 leaned over and whispered urgently in my ear canal. Sir, we're receiving reports from across the galaxy. Every major news network is positioning cameras to broadcast whatever happens next. The betting pools on Rigel 7 have us at odds of 3,000 to 1 against. 3,000 to 1. Against us. The mighty Vorthak Empire. Commander Vex? Kane's voice carried a note of amusement. You're not having second thoughts, are you? Something in her tone triggered what you humans might call a moment of clarity. Or perhaps a complete mental breakdown. At this point, the distinction seemed irrelevant. Director Kane, I said, my voice carrying the dignity of someone who was about to make either the bravest or stupidest decision of his life, the Vorthak Empire does not back down from challenges. Excellent. Kane's enthusiasm was genuinely terrifying. I was hoping you'd say that. Our War Games division has been working on some new concepts they're dying to field test. Field test. We were going to be field tested. However, I continued quickly, I must ask, what exactly does human-style warfare entail? Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Kane's image appeared on our main screen, and she was practically bouncing with excitement. You see, most species approach warfare as a grim necessity. Life and death, survival of the fittest, that sort of thing. Humans approach it as what? Performance art. Performance art. I felt several of my internal organs rearrange themselves in ways that definitely violated the laws of biology. You see, Kane continued, we discovered long ago that the most effective way to win a war is to make your enemy question not just their ability to fight, but their entire understanding of reality. So we developed what we call psychological warfare through absurdist demonstration. I have no idea what that means. Don't worry, you will. Oh, and Vex? You might want to buckle up. Things are about to get weird. The transmission cut out, and for a moment, blessed silence filled the bridge, then the screaming started, not from my crew, though they looked like they wanted to join in. The screaming was coming from our external sensors, which were detecting energy signatures that should not have been possible. Sir. Kek-29's voice cracked like an adolescent's. The human fleet is, sir, I don't know how to describe what the human fleet is doing. Try. Well, sir, half of their ships appear to be folding themselves into geometric shapes that shouldn't exist in three-dimensional space. Another quarter seem to be phasing in and out of reality entirely. And the rest, yes? The rest appear to be having some sort of dance party. I looked at the tactical display and immediately regretted every life choice that had led me to this moment. The human fleet was indeed engaging in what could only be described as synchronized movement patterns while emitting what our computers were translating as party music. Are they mocking us? I asked weakly. Sir, came a new voice from our communications officer, we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. It appears to be an invitation. An invitation to what? To surrender with dignity, sir. They're offering to let us keep our weapons and our ships if we agree to participate in what they're calling educational combat demonstrations for the next 6 months. 6 months of educational combat demonstrations. I was beginning to understand why the rest of the galaxy had left Earth alone. Sir, Zil-47 ventured, perhaps we should consider their first offer. The one about going home with free technology. Before I could respond, our proximity alarms began screaming. 3 human ships had somehow appeared directly beside our flagship without triggering any of our detection systems. Greetings, Commander Vex. A new human voice filled the bridge, this one belonging to a man who introduced himself as Admiral Torres. Sorry to drop in unannounced, but we thought you might like a closer look at what you're up against. How did you get past our shields? I demanded. Shields? Admiral Torres sounded genuinely confused. Oh, those energy barriers around your ships? We've been inside your shields for the past 20 minutes. Our stealth technology is based on something we call selective attention manipulation. Basically, we convinced your sensors that we weren't worth noticing. They had convinced our sensors. Our advanced, quantum-enhanced, reality-piercing sensors had been talked out of detecting them. This is impossible, I said for what felt like the 100th time that day. Commander, Admiral Torres said gently, I think we need to have a serious conversation about your relationship with the word impossible. It seems to be causing you some distress. The main display flickered, showing the interior of one of the human ships. It looked normal. Almost disappointingly normal. Humans in uniforms working at control stations, much like my own bridge crew. You see, Vex, Admiral Torres continued, the thing about humans is that we don't just prepare for war. We prepare for every possible variation of war. Conventional war, unconventional war, interdimensional war, time war, economic war, philosophical war, and about 17 different types of war that don't have names yet because we haven't had occasion to use them. 17 types? I whispered. 18, actually. We invented a new one while you were deciding whether to fight us. We call it ontological warfare. It involves attacking the enemy's fundamental understanding of existence until they voluntarily cease to exist out of sheer confusion. I felt my consciousness start to fray around the edges. But don't worry, Admiral Torres said reassuringly, we're not going to use that one on you. It's considered unsporting unless the enemy specifically asks for it. What are you going to use on us? Well, since this is being broadcast across the galaxy, we thought we'd go with something educational. A demonstration of why picking fights with humans is generally considered a bad idea among civilized species. The display changed, showing a detailed breakdown of our fleet composition, our weapons capabilities, our tactical formations, and what appeared to be psychological profiles of my senior officers. How do you know all this? I asked, though I was beginning to suspect the answer would only make me more confused. Oh, we've been monitoring your empire for about 300 years, Admiral Torres said casually. Ever since you conquered the Zolonian Republic. They were friends of ours, you see. Nice people. Very good at making tea. 300 years. They had been watching us for 300 years. We've been waiting for you to eventually work your way around to Earth, Admiral Torres continued. It was really just a matter of time. Bullies always eventually pick on someone they can't handle. It's like a law of nature. We are not bullies. I protested, though even as I said it, I realized how hollow it sounded. Commander, Admiral Torres said patiently, you've conquered 700 worlds, most of them inhabited by species that barely understood metallurgy. Your standard operating procedure is to show up with overwhelming force, demand surrender, and then strip mine the planet for resources. If that's not bullying, what would you call it? I opened my mouth to respond, then closed it again. He had a point. But here's the thing, Admiral Torres continued, we don't want to destroy you. Destruction is wasteful, and humans hate waste. Instead, we're going to give you something much more valuable. What? Perspective. Before I could ask what that meant, every screen on my bridge lit up with what appeared to be a live feed from across the galaxy. Hundreds of worlds, thousands of species, all watching our confrontation with expressions of anticipation and, was that popcorn? Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted non-binary entities across the galaxy, Director Kane's voice rang out like a carnival announcer, welcome to today's educational presentation, Why You Should Never, Ever Pick a Fight with Humans, a live demonstration. The cheering was audible even through the vacuum of space.